Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. Here, I'll read episodes from my books, from the books I wrote, and talk about it or anything that pops up in my mind. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I'll read an episode from one of my books titled The Girl in Kyoto. Today's episode is about one particular game I used to play at my grandparents' house in New Year's holiday. This episode is titled Mortar. Mortar. I ask you to keep what you're about to read in here to yourself, since it concerns an illegal activity I was once engaged in. Until I was about 16 years old, my parents, my younger sister, and I had visited my grandparents' home every year during the New Year's. Limited for that time of the year, a quiet countryside house of my grandparents would turn into a family casino. It consisted of 3 different areas. In the card game area, which was the living room, a card game called kabu, that is similar to blackjack, would be played. In the coin game area, which was my grandparents' room, would be for a game called Mortar. And the break area, which was the dining room, would be for those who didn't like gambling or who needed food and drink. It would be open for 24 hours, but only the family members could play. The coin game was organized by my grandmother. She set up a huge china mortar for sesame on the tatami floor, and the players would sit around it on the floor. They would take turns and roll a 10-yen coin, which is worth about 10 cents, inside the mortar. The coin rolled along the side of the round mortar, descending gradually toward the bottom. If it landed on other coins at the bottom, the player could get them. Although the game was simple, we would be absorbed in playing, and our heads and eyes are rolling above the mortar with the coin inside. My cousin was good at it with her own devised technique to throw in the coin. I would also win snugly with my fixation on money. Beside the excited circle, my grandfather and my father, who were not interested in gambling, would talk over Japanese tea that my grandfather would make. My grandmother would start fretting after midnight and tell us to be quiet because she had believed that the military policemen could bust in with bayonets. We laughed at her anachronism while seeing her try to mute the motor and still live in the World War II era. She upgraded the motor one year by putting a round piece of cardboard near the bottom. The motor's floor was raised and became wider and flatter, so that it was harder to make the coin lie on top of the other. More coins to take would be left at the bottom, and the game got more exciting. Those were such fond memories, and I can still hear the sound of a rolling coin inside the mortar during New Year's. Later on, the joyful grandparents' house was burned down by my grandmother's carelessness with a candle. It's gone forever. That was today's episode. This is this game was used to be played at my grandparents' house. Grandparents on my mother's side, and I live in my house. I lived with my grandparents on my father's side. So, and I didn't get along with them so well. So, but I really, really liked my grandparents on my mother's side. And visiting them was one of my big pleasures in my childhood. And my mother often visited them because that house was where my mother was born and grew up, and where she had been living until she got married and left the house. So she was attached to it, and she visited there quite often. But taking her children, that mean my sister and me, didn't happen so often. So it was rather a special occasion. And especially a New Year's visit was a big treat for me, because it was sort of a big home party held at my grandparents' house. And everybody was in a big mood, in a good mood. So I enjoyed being there so much. And it's one of the reasons I enjoyed so immensely there was undoubtedly because of this game. Because was so exciting to see my grandparents' house turn into a casino once a year. And everybody except my grandfather and my father was so excited and hyped, and they enjoyed gambling together so much. And this particular game, Mortar. I wonder how many of you are familiar with this kind of mortar for grinding sesame. It used to be very common kitchenware in Japan. In old days, Every household has one mortar. And the mortar in my grandparents' house was quite huge. It's about 15-inch diameter. And we roll a 10 yen coin inside it by throwing it in. And so we follow the way the coin is rolling. And if it sits on the other coin, we can get them. And oh, by the way, I just it happens to come to my mind. There's an impression of the expression of Japanese that is grinding sesame. Grinding sesame in Japanese means apple polishing. It's quite a common expression in Japan. So you got one expression of Japanese. You now got it. It's a common expression. Anyway, so Motorola game was a rather casual one in the grandparents' house casino. The much more serious one was Kabu. There was a card game. But when I was little, the main game was a Motorola. And it's just I could gain mainly small changes. So it's not a big, there's no big winning nor big losing. So it's for me, my sister, and my cousins, mostly for children, and my grandmother and my mother and my aunt. But my grandmother was really absorbed in it. She had her sweat on her brow, and she leaned over the mortar, and she so concentrated on the coins and mortar, and it's like she couldn't see anything else while she was playing. And so it was so funny to me to see her playing like that. And we played it all day long, and because we stayed over that night, because it was New Year's holiday, we are playing past midnight until almost morning. And then my grandmother was trying to mute the sound of mortar and the coin made, because she still believed the military policeman was coming when they heard that noise, and they thought the illegal activity was being conducted in an ordinary house. And so funny. In many ways, my grandmother was so funny, because she was seriously afraid of that, afraid of the raid. She seemed to believe that is happening to her anytime. But fortunately, it never been the case until we grew older and stopped playing Motorola. The military policeman she feared had never busted in the house. It was over peacefully when the house was sadly burned down by grandmother's candle at the Buddhist altar. So I loved that game. I loved that particular mortar, but it was gone with the house forever. It was burnt with the house. But it's interesting that I still hear the sound of the coin rolling down the big mortar every New Year's holiday. That sound comes from somewhere into my ears, and every year I still hear that exciting, memorable sound. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Hidemi Woods. I hope you come back here soon and join me again. Thanks again. Until next time, take care and be well.